hearty welcome to one and all. This episode is called Super Bowl 58, which we all saw, or I should say many of us saw yesterday, or aggressively didn't see, so we could tell our friends today that I didn't watch it or whatever. But if you're checking out Super Bowl 58 post-mortem on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, and are enjoying the content, don't forget to click like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. Or if you're catching up with this particular edition of the podcast on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes, same rule applies. If you enjoy the content, click like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. So like many people, like many Gen Xers, I've been around for a good number of Super Bowls. This was Super Bowl 58. And, a little bit of the early history, it really wasn't called the Super Bowl. The game was still a big deal, into the mid-1960s, but in general, it was just called the title game. It would still be considered the championship, but the phrase Super Bowl didn't begin until, I think, the 66-67 season, if I'm not mistaken. But yesterday's game, without question, is easily in the top 10 of best, and that can mean something different to different people. It was one of the most exciting Super Bowls I've ever seen. I would definitely put that in the top 5. And I was pulling for the Chiefs. I'd never rooted for the 49ers. Back in the day when Joe Montana was winning all those Super Bowls, I respected the hell out of Joe Montana. Loved Ronnie Lott as a player. Loved Roger Craig as a player. John Taylor. And Bill Walsh. I mean, he's in the conversation. Greatest NFL coach ever. That was a wizard, a pioneering genius of a coach. I mean, Bill Walsh invented the West Coast offense. The West Coast offense, using the pass like a running game. But I respected those 49ers teams. I have never rooted for the San Francisco 49ers in my life. And I wasn't about to start yesterday. I don't have any issue with Pat Mahomes. I remember his dad when his dad pitched for the Mets. And Alex Rodriguez, who was a friend of Pat Mahomes as he went by, famously, when little Patrick was 4 or 5, Alex famously said, "You don't want to be a football player, kiddo. You want to be a baseball player like your dad." Well, there have been a lot of great athletes through history, Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders and Brian Jordan, guys who ended up playing both baseball and football at the highest levels, especially Deion and Bo. But then there were people who were huge prospects in both sports, like John Elway, whose agent told the New York Yankees in, I believe, 1981, he's going to play baseball. And the Yankees literally pissed away a first-round draft pick on John Elway, who had no intention of ever doing anything other than playing football. And that is one reason why my dad, may he rest in peace, never liked John Elway, because of that horse shit that Elway's agent pulled on the New York Yankees. So, great player, John Elway, but I understand why my dad rooted against him every game that he ever played from the beginning of his career until the end. Fuck that guy. That kind of thing. Another great player who was a huge prospect and played, who was supposed to be Drew Henson. Some of you might remember the name. He actually started over Tom Brady at Michigan. It's the answer to the question, why was Tom Brady not a higher draft pick? Didn't Brady go in the 5th round? Was he like the number 180 overall pick? Because Michigan had a cannon-armed, insanely physically gifted Drew Henson, who played a lot of quarterback, and the Yankees drafted him too, and there was talk, it's almost ridiculous now. They said this kid's going to be the next Mike Schmidt. Yeah, that didn't happen. It didn't happen for Drew Henson in either sport. It's so difficult to predict these things. There are very few sports. Basketball is one where you could be pretty sure that a huge prospect is going to make it. But the other skill sports, like football, and especially like baseball, you just don't know. If you want to say there are more intangibles, I guess there kind of are. But as far as the game yesterday and Patrick Mahomes, I was pulling for the Chiefs. I didn't think that many of the TV commercials were that great. I don't know what your thoughts were. I like the Arnold Schwarzenegger State Farm commercial, making fun of his. And I was at a party and I thought that the director in the commercial was saying Maybach. I'm like, there are no Maybachs here. He was saying neighbor. And Arnold kept saying, neighbor, like a good neighbor. And then they even got to work in the fact that Arnold doesn't say the word chopper. He says chopper. And by the way, Arnold's Netflix program, which was renewed for a second season, FUBAR, it's not a great show. It's like a 7 out of 10. There's much better TV out there. But if you're a fan of his, the show is certainly worth seeing. The supporting cast is very solid. Monica Barbaro, who was one of the pilots in Top Gun Maverick, plays his daughter. The show is fun. But it's fun, especially if you're an Arnold fan, because it has a lot of fun with his career and with some of the iconic moments in his career. And I'll give you an example. There's a moment in the movie there's a moment in the show FUBAR where Arnold is explaining that he was the kind of parent who allowed his daughter to kind of do her own thing. And what he means to say is that he was not a helicopter parent, but because it's Arnold and we all know, get to the chopper, he goes, I was not a chopper parent. And one of the characters says, do you mean helicopter parent? He says, no, chopper. It's great. I thought that commercial was very clever. The way that they brought Danny DeVito in, that was great to see those two old pals who famously worked together in the movie Twins, and Junior, which was not nearly as good as Twins. And they've always teased getting together again, but remains to be seen if that happens. I like that commercial. Seeing Jeff Goldblum in that science fiction-y commercial for apartments. Let's face it, Jeff Goldblum, the youngest looking 70-year-old I've ever seen. Guy looks amazing for his age and always does that same shtick. He's been doing it since the 80s and really even going back before The Fly, that kind of peculiar line reading, that off-kilter way he has of addressing the camera, addressing other characters. It's fantastic. Oh, Christopher Walken commercial. It's terrific. So many different people got to give their own interpretation on Christopher Walken's unusual cadence. I haven't shot anyone since 1984. Other than those, not really much of an impression. And the first half of the actual game was not that exciting. There have been games that were defensive struggles where there wasn't much scoring but felt like great games. And I will specifically say the first Eli Manning, Tom Brady Super Bowl matchup, the year of 17 wins, or was it 18 wins and one giant loss, the year that the Patriots were going for the undefeated season. And Eli and the Giants ended up winning 17-14. That game was a defensive struggle where both quarterbacks were getting hit, and Brady took a terrible beating in that game, kept dragging himself up. It's you could say one of his finest hours. If their defense had held Eli, what Brady did in that game, the amount of time Strahan was in his face and other guys on the Giants were just beating the crap out of him all day, and the guy just kept getting up. It's like, fuck this, we're winning this game. And Eli took a lot of hits in that particular game. But that was a first half also where there wasn't much scoring, but it felt like a much more exciting and chess match type game. And Steve Spagnuolo, the Chiefs defensive coordinator, was the Giants defensive coordinator tasked with trying to stop that unstoppable Patriots offense in the year that they had, where they were going for the undefeated season. And that offense was so great that even when the Giants were getting through, hitting Brady, and the Patriots went to a max protect where they're only sending a couple of receivers out, guys like Randy Moss were still getting open because that offense was incredible. And, you got to try to protect your quarterback. So the game yesterday, the first half wasn't great football. There were a couple of turnovers and with the fumbles. There were some weird plays. I couldn't believe that gadget play worked. It was so slow to develop. First off, I never expect to see gadget plays in the Super Bowl, even though, like Sean Payton, I think with the Saints, he pulled off an onside kick when people weren't expecting it. And sometimes you get that. But I sure as fuck was not expecting, a Tennessee Titans, crazy lateral, Music City Miracle style play to score a touchdown. I thought that was a busted play because just as a fan watching, when whoever it was that took the lateral, I was like, he's not going anywhere. He doesn't have anything to do with the football. I thought the play was busted and he was just going to go down or take a knee. I could not believe that was a touchdown. So we talk about the halftime show. And I have to say, as a Gen Xer, and not necessarily somebody who is, I wouldn't consider myself a fan of Usher. I acknowledge, of course, his place in R&B and in music history, a very influential artist. The guy still looks great. He's 45 years old, for crying out loud. He looks fantastic. But Usher has been a star since just about the time I got out of college in 97. He was already on the rise and on the move. And in the movie The Faculty, which was kind of like if Scream were a science fiction film, a little bit of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, he's not the lead, but he's in that movie. That movie's more than a quarter century old. He played a high school kid in that film. So seeing Usher at halftime, you know, it was somewhat of a safe choice. He's more of an older millennial Gen Z kind of a guy. But the thing that hurt is I was at my cousin's house in Great Neck. My cousin is my age. He's a couple of months younger, but we're in the same ballpark. And he has two kids, one of whom is soon to go off to college. And the other one is like 14, 15. And the son, had a lot of friends over of, you know, all different kinds of people that he's friends with from school. But the idea is there were at least a dozen young people, 14, 15-year-old range in that ballpark. And when Usher went out there and came on, three of them, unprompted, without anybody saying a word, not talking to one another, randomly said, "Who is that?" And even as someone who is not really a fan of Usher, kind of hurt. Who is that? He's one of the most influential R&B guys ever. I mean, people are still copying some of his hooks and some of the things that he came up with, even back on the Confessions, you know, that album from so long ago. And I thought he was terrific. But gotta love the graveyard of social media. You go on Facebook, first post, Usher is trash. 6 comments, fucking garbage, bro. Holy crap, that guy is terrible. He's the worst. How the hell does he even still have a career? I thought he was dead. 1 person down. Oh my God, Usher was a total vibe. 8 comments, he's amazing. He was incredible. Holy shit, he looks amazing. Oh God, he's so sexy. And so on down the line. It was actually more like 75% of people who said, okay, he did okay. My memory is, in all of the Super Bowl halftime shows, especially since the social media era, which we're going to say, let's say mid-2000s, the only halftime show where my sense is that everybody liked it was Prince at the 2007 Super Bowl. Whatever number that was. Was that Super Bowl 41? That's the only one where I don't remember anybody saying, "Fucking suck, Prince is a piece of shit, fuck that guy, fucking asshole." I thought the halftime show was terrific. Seeing Ludacris up there, all good. You know, I remember the year when the Giants beat the Patriots for the second time in 2012. Now a dozen years ago. Madonna was the main cog of the show. I thought she was fucking great. And people were like, "Fucking bitch, she's terrible, I fucking hate her." Can't please everybody. So props to Usher for knowing that there were millions of people that were just going to beat the shit out of him on social media. He's old, he's past it, fucking loser. I enjoyed the show. I liked the production, the way that it was all put together. And then the second half of the game was super exciting. And it was a cleaner game in terms of there weren't weird plays and there was just a lot of real hard-nosed football. And anybody who, you know, was going to go into the Taylor Swift, "Oh, she was on camera all game." No, she wasn't. I counted. Before the game ended, she was on camera less than 30 seconds. Less than 30 seconds. They were getting her for like 2 and 3 seconds at a time, celebrating, angry, sad, drinking a beer, whatever it was. All right, I remember listening, he was sort of joking, but Colin Cowherd a couple of weeks ago was talking about people losing their minds over this, and he pointed out, and I love the guy, when Matthew McConaughey goes to University of Texas football, he's on camera the whole fucking game. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Taylor Swift, some people, "Oh, this is the greatest thing." And hey, Roger Goodell is going to send her, I don't even know what he's going to send her. It's not like she needs anything, but he is making she's made the NFL a lot of money. There's more people tuning in just because of her. And all she's doing is sitting there. Anyway, I would not have been able to I'm not as big a football fan as I used to be. I would not have been able to differentiate between Travis Kelce and his brother. This is not like back in the day where I was enough of a fan where I could tell Tiki and Rondé Barber apart. That's Tiki. How do you know? I just know. Travis Kelce played a terrific game, and as we saw in the big drive at the end, and the Chiefs could have lost that game very easily. For all of you kind of tinfoil hat people at a psyop and whatever nonsense you want to talk about, it was rigged. The Chiefs could have lost that game, that 4th and 1. If the snap isn't right, they fumble a football, they lose the game. I mean, Mahomes he's got the guts of a burglar, that guy. And we can sit here, debate greatest quarterbacks ever. If you ask me the question, and I love this, again, I love debating this kind of stuff. I don't like having the tinfoil hat type of debates, unless you want to talk about the Kennedy assassination. But I like to debate things that can't really be answered, but in a more enjoyable and fun way. I like debating quarterbacks, much as I like debating baseball players or boxers. Ali versus Tyson when they're both 22, who wins? I love that. I love arguing movies. Why didn't Pulp Fiction win Best Picture the year that Forrest Gump won? I can have 2 hours screaming at you. I feel better doing that than arguing about whether or not there was too much of Taylor Swift on camera yesterday. Kelce played a great game. We saw it. He was fantastic. And obviously that's the memes are, and I love, this is the kind of stuff I love. The memes when he went over to Andy Reid and almost knocked his coach over. Let me tell you something. He's lucky that Andy Reid likes him, because if he tried that with a guy like fucking Bud Grant or one of those guys in the 70s, he would have got the shit kicked out of him. Do you imagine trying that with those coaches of the 70s? Don Shula? Holy shit. I love Andy Reid. Andy Reid's great. He was great with the Eagles in the Donovan McNabb days, and he took it not in good humor. They're all competitors. They're all trying. But relatively speaking, it would have been better if it hadn't been Travis Kelce doing that, if it had been a different player on the Chiefs losing his temper. The optics aren't great. The optics aren't great. But as far as quarterbacks, in terms of total skill set and moxie, you're asking me who has been and is the most talented overall? I mean, I could say Mahomes. It doesn't mean he's not the greatest quarterback ever today. But in terms of talent and his ability to not let the pressure of the moment get to him, I mean, I love Aaron Rodgers as a player, right? Aaron Rodgers is amazing with the arm, with the feet, and even though he fucked up his knee and that the whole thing with the Jets, we know he's tough. We've seen him play games where he absolutely got plastered from one end of the field to the other. The guy just kept pulling himself up. And so Mahomes might be the most talented overall to ever play the position. But no, he's not Brady. Yeah, he can run better than Brady. But, I'm not going to say that right now he's the greatest quarterback ever. Would I rather have him playing a big game than Peyton Manning? Yes. Would I rather have him playing a big game than Tom Brady? I don't know about that. But it's arguable, it's debatable, and it's fun, in my opinion, this kind of debate. And the fact that they were down, and there were people at the point, the game's over. At 10-0, they were saying the game was over. I said, don't you remember in the game 4 years ago against the Niners? I said, weren't they down a couple of scores, like with maybe 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter or something like that? It's the first half. Game's not over. So, great game. One of the 10 best. I don't really want to go through the list of best games, but the reality is that the Giants and Patriots, the 17-14 where the Giants rallied to ruin the Patriots' undefeated season, is absolutely one of the best Super Bowls ever. I mean, very few people would say that's not in the top 5. And a big part of it, not just with the Patriots going for the undefeated record, but David Tyree's catch. Eli Manning's escape from a sack on 3rd down, and it would have been 4th down and 20-something, and it would have been curtains for the Giants. Because remember, the Giants needed a touchdown. They were down 14-10 because Brady, after getting the shit beat out of him all day, got up, kept getting up, and led the Patriots on an incredible touchdown drive to take that 14-10 lead. But the Tyree catch, and then, it's almost anticlimactic the way that the Giants scored the touchdown. It was the easiest it was basically a schoolyard type of a play. It was just a shimmy shake type move from Plaxico where he moved one way and rolled the other, and there was nobody there. The defender was nowhere near him. And, even Plaxico after the game said, I just wanted to make sure I didn't trip because he wasn't going to drop the ball. It was, Eli, it was basically a fade pattern. He just flipped it up in the air. It was not one of those where even a good receiver has to concentrate because the ball's traveling 50 miles an hour and he's got to make a fingertip catch. But yesterday's game was great. It was incredibly exciting. And I stayed for the whole game, even though I had a 45-mile drive back. And it was mostly me and my cousin, and his family and a couple of other kids who lived in the area, near Great Neck is where he lives. But man, I was riveted for a game that I did not have a real dog in the fight. I was rooting for the Chiefs, but I wasn't going to lose sleep if the 49ers won. I've never had a football game do to me what baseball did to me. I love football. I have always been an NFL fan. And as I said, my first Super Bowl was Super Bowl 15, the first of many blowouts in the 1980s. And let me again talk to the youngins out there, the Gen Zs especially. You have been fortunate to see a very high percentage of quality Super Bowls. You go back to the decade of the 80s, starting with the 1981, January 30th or whatever the day was, Super Bowl. That game was over in the first quarter. And there were a bunch of Super Bowls in the 80s. I'd say it's 6, but 5 for sure, that were absolute blowouts. Or in the case of the Giants-Broncos in 87, it was close at the half, and then the Giants ended up winning by 19. The outcome was not in doubt in the fourth. But 80s and into the early 90s, there were a lot of blowout games. And it's not fun. You get so geared up. You want to see a competitive Super Bowl. And we have gotten a lot, especially with the Chiefs in this run with Mahomes, that the games have been great. The one 4 years ago was also an all-timer. You can argue, top 10. Now, if somebody's asking me, just from the general fan perspective, because of my affinity for the Giants, because I am a Giants fan, I have 2 Giants Super Bowls in the top 5. Giants-Bills, which I actually did a whole episode just on that game and my experience that crazy day traveling home from Florida, trying not to get a score and somehow succeeding and getting home and watching a VHS tape that my dad had dutifully set up for me. Thank you, Dad. But that Giants-Bills I have in the top 5, the 20-19, Scott Norwood wide right. And that was an upset. See, yesterday, I know the Niners were the betting favorites, but it wasn't like an upset that the Chiefs won. It's very tough to bet against Mahomes. We've seen it. He's still young. He's still probably got years of prime left. The Giants-Bills game, as tough as that Giants defense was, and I love Jeff Hostetler, but the Giants were playing without their quarterback. Phil Simms was on his way to like MVP contention level. The 1990-91 season, Phil Simms was fucking phenomenal that year, and then he got hurt and was out for the rest of the season. I love Hostetler, but Hostetler played great in the playoffs, but it would not have been considered as big of an upset, for example, if Phil Simms was starting. The spread wouldn't have been what it was. And the Bills really looked tremendous in the postseason up to that. But the idea was that was an upset, and the Giant defense and their ability to control the ball with Hostetler throwing controlled short passes and Otis Anderson on the ground, some big plays by David Meggett, et cetera, et cetera. But the Super Bowl 42, David Tyree, that game, I believe, generally speaking, is considered in the top 3 all-time of Super Bowls. And the Super Bowl that right now I think gets named the most as the best Super Bowl ever is when Brady, I think it's now 7 years ago, so Super Bowl 51, when the Falcons were up, was it 28-3 at the half? And Brady and the Patriots ended up winning that game. That was unbelievably exciting. Again, as yesterday I was on, and not just me, everybody at the party that stayed, we were all on the edge of our seats. Fourth quarter, overtime, not knowing if somebody going to blow a field goal. And obviously that extra point where, it's something that you only know if you watch a lot of football. When it's a 30 yards or in, normally the kicker kicks it up. So there is no chance it's going to get blocked. And that particular kick, he didn't hit it right and it got blocked. it's just one of those crazy things that happen. Otherwise, the Niners might win the game in regulation. But the Patriots-Falcons, that crazy comeback, the fourth quarter, the mad scramble of the Falcons trying to just get points and kill the clock. And every time Brady got the ball, he threw so many passes right on the numbers. He was incredible that day. I mean, what a fucking player he was, right? And we joked around yesterday. He had that stupid commercial where I love that Matt Damon is almost being the audience in that commercial. He's acknowledging how fucking stupid it all looks. And he's this sort of takeoff on Good Will Hunting where he makes a donuts reference. How do you like them donuts instead of how do you like them apples? There's your Gen X reference because everyone in that commercial is a Gen Xer. J-Lo's older than me, if I'm allowed to say that. Is she 54? Holy shit. She looks amazing. But then again, so does Ben. Ben's older than me, and Matt's older than me. Brady is about 46 now. He looks like he's still in his 30s, if you ask me. But tremendous Super Bowl. And yes, you can feel bad for the Niners getting so close and, kind of having it taken away. But Mahomes just has the magic. And you see certain athletes who have it. And Joe Montana of the Niners was a guy who had the magic, where there were times where he didn't make the best throw, and it's as if the football gods wanted him to win. And I'm specifically speaking of when he came back against the Boomer Esiason and the Bengals. I think it was a second down play as they were trying to go for the winning touchdown and ended up getting the winning touchdown to John Taylor. Jerry Rice was almost like a decoy because prime Jerry Rice, you had to throw everybody on the line at him. He was that good. And Rice could still, like Randy Moss years later. Moss was so talented, he could just outjump everybody for the ball. It didn't matter if you blanketed him in coverage, he could still get the ball. But Montana on a play, I think it was either a first or second down, he missed his target. I don't know if it was Taylor or Rice, but he was trying to throw the ball here, he threw it there, and it went right through the safety's hands. Some people just have the magic. Mahomes didn't need that kind of break yesterday, but he was just incredible. He has that radar, and we've seen it from other mobile quarterbacks. I remember in the 80s rooting against John Elway along with my dad and marveling, as much as I was pissed off, marveling at Elway's ability to detect when he had to flee the pocket. I've never seen anybody with the radar that John Elway had until Patrick Mahomes. And Mahomes' legs he's probably a faster runner than Elway, but Elway was big. Like, he was a guy who could deliver shots. You didn't want a safety, you run those guys over. Mahomes was fantastic yesterday. And as I say, Kelce with that big first down, the catch and run. And, it's like when you're watching it and they got the first down, I think on the 13, the last drive, where they were still losing. And somebody even was talking yesterday at the party, we need, one of the people was rooting for the Niners, we need a Malcolm Butler play. That's 9 years ago now. Malcolm Butler's interception against Seattle why didn't they just keep handing the ball to Marshawn Lynch, right? But when I had it in my head, even though I know football, and I say, okay, the Chiefs have a first down on the 13, and I'm thinking to myself, they got to score a touchdown. Now, we know that they didn't have to score a touchdown, a field goal, and the game continues, as they pointed out. But it escaped my mind what the Chiefs were doing. And when Kelce made the catch, and I'm thinking to myself, well, he's not going to get into the end zone. They're going to have to kick a field goal. And then all of a sudden, I see that line of going across the field. What the fuck am I talking about? He's made the first down. I forgot they were not in 3-down territory, first and goal. When he made that first down, in my mind, knowing Mahomes' ability with his legs, with his ability to roll left, roll right, and put maximum pressure on the defense. Because one thing that a lot of people who are not huge fans of football don't necessarily understand, it is very difficult to throw when you get into, the red zone, but when you're inside of the 10. Because there's a ton of defenders in a very small area and not that many receivers, relatively speaking. If you're going to throw, you better be damn sure. Especially in a game situation. You can fuck around in the first quarter, one thing. You still don't want to throw a pick. But you got to make sure, and we saw Mahomes throw the pick, is what I'm saying. If you're going to throw it, the guy's got to have a step. He's got to have a step. or you have to have the kind of situation where he's moving to the outside. And it turned out yesterday the receiver was, I forgot the guy's name, was wide open. It was as easy, almost as easy as Plaxico Burress. And that was one of my favorite. And Joe Buck is a guy who gets a lot of hate, but I actually happen to think he's terrific on baseball. And I think he's okay on football. I don't hate Joe Buck. If you ask me, do I think Jim Nantz is easier to listen to? Absolutely. And I think Tony Romo does a terrific job. But I was also a fan of Phil Simms. I thought Phil Simms and Nantz were really good also. But the call on Plaxico Burress, sometimes things happen that are so easy you can't believe it. And when Eli threw this fade, he just kind of lobbed the ball. And the reason why he lobbed it, because, oh my God, if you throw a ball up in the air, somebody could pick it off. Burress's move in Super Bowl 42, the second best Super Bowl in history, most people agree, no lower than third. Burress's move right and move left. He had steps on the defender. And when Eli launched the throw, now you're just watching Eli Manning and you're on the edge of your seat in that game. When he lobbed that throw, the camera finds Plaxico Burress stepping into the end zone. The defender's got to be at least 5 or 6 steps away from him. The way that Joe Buck screams, Burress alone, as if he can't believe what he's looking at. That in this situation, with less than a minute left in the game, the Giants need a touchdown. How the hell does somebody get this open? He got that open. You know, again, the decisions. If the Patriots decide to throw, who at the time was a Pro Bowler, Asante Samuel, and bring a safety over, if Belichick says before that play, I don't want Burress beating me, I hate that guy, can't do it. But Plaxico was in man coverage, and he was a lot taller than the defender. All he had to do was make that move. Right, boom, left, and he's all by himself. And it was similar to the way the Chiefs won yesterday, where to me it almost happened in slow motion. The play, it's like it was too easy after that incredible game that it was going to end on something like that. But it did. And I left, feeling, in the words of Teddy KGB, when he said I feel so unsatisfied. But I left feeling as if I had seen a great game. And if, for example, if the Chiefs on that big 4th and 1, if there was a transfer, a fuck up on the snap, or if somehow, and we saw it, that Bosa was getting through the line. Man, that guy is an incredible player. He comes through the line and he nails Mahomes, and the 49ers win by 3. I'd still say it was a great game. I would say, wow, we got another fantastic Super Bowl with all the hoopla, all the hype. Taylor Swift's boyfriend, I'm rooting for her, I'm rooting against her, suit up, Taylor, they need you, whatever. We saw a great football game yesterday. And I feel bad for people who put bets on the game and lost. You have like prop bets and boxes and everything like that. And a friend of mine was telling me that because if the game had ended, he was in a conundrum, he was really pulling for the Chiefs in his heart. If the game had ended, if the play I just said, if Patrick Mahomes gets smashed on 4th and 1 and the game ends right there with the 49ers winning the Super Bowl, he would have won $17,000. Oops. Shit happens. But we saw a great Super Bowl, and, I don't like the whole thing, and now they're going to go for a 3-peat. Yeah, they're going to go for a 3-peat, but let him enjoy the offseason, I'm going to Disney World. Let Patrick Mahomes take a little breather. The guy's 28, man. He's got 3 Super Bowls. He's 28. What an incredible player. And yes, it helps that he's had terrific teams around him. The defense really tightened up. I mean, the Niners, and Brock Purdy I thought Brock Purdy played a really good game because he took a lot of shots. The Chiefs were getting pressure. Spagnuolo took risks and they paid off. Like what they did with the Giants, where Brady was in max protect in that game in 2008. The Giants were still getting through. Strahan had 2 guys on him, and Strahan was like, fuck this. This is my last game. I love Tom Brady, but I'm going to fuck him up. Who wouldn't want to go out the way Michael Strahan went out? Not only winning a Super Bowl, but playing one of the best games of his life in his last game. Talk about going out on top. Because he was in Brady's face all day and putting pressure. Putting a whooping on him. He really was hurting. And you know what? Brady, to his credit, just kept getting up. kept getting up. We're playing football. Let's go. We're all trying to win a game, right? So yeah, Super Bowl 58 was worth the price of admission. I know there were issues with the streamers, and I didn't pay much attention to it. I got a message during the game saying, "Hey, can I have your Paramount Plus login?" I didn't know that was a thing. Again, I'm not into this part of media as far as the NFL just trying to make more and more and more money. I didn't know that you needed Paramount Plus or some other streamer. I thought you could just watch it on CBS. I'm a naive, virginal TV watcher. I don't know these things. But many people, even those who had that issue, they text, "Oh yeah, I was able to see the game," or what have you. So we got to see another great Super Bowl. And the last 2 decades, most of the games have been very good or great, that they came down to the last couple of possessions. And really, to me, after seeing all those shitty games in the 80s and into the early 90s, the Bills where they got blown out of a couple of Super Bowls, the Redskins crushed them, the Cowboys crushed them, that's into the 90s. So if you want to start from 81 and go to 93, I think there were 7 really lousy Super Bowls. As a fan, I just go into the fourth quarter where the outcome is still in doubt. It's within a 2-score game. And we got that. It never was more than a 2-score game. It was 10-0 and 10-3, 10-6, and just really good, hard-nosed, old-school football. Despite the fact that there was the gadget play that worked for a touchdown. But that doesn't take away from the fact that both teams left it on the field. And Romo kept talking about this, and he wasn't wrong. Both sides are exhausted. They're playing at a frenetic pace. It's hot out here, whatever. This isn't, the air quality isn't great. There are certain stadiums that are outdoor that because it's not so dry, you're going to not gas out. Because most of these guys, especially the safeties, running backs, wide receivers, those kinds of guys are in incredible physical condition from a cardio perspective. But this has been Super Bowl 58 ruminations, post-mortem, and some, chatter about other Super Bowls and this game's place in history. I will put it in my top 5. As I said, you got the 2 Giants games in there. You have Brady, the comeback with the Falcons, and this one. And that's 4 of the 5. And you can pick whatever Super Bowl you want. You want to do the Malcolm Butler Patriots one, you can. Steelers Cardinals, that incredible game where Larry Fitzgerald, to this day, one of the best catch and runs I've ever seen, where Kurt Warner delivered a bullet over the middle. And Larry Fitzgerald made a fingertip catch of a pass that looked like it was going 70 miles an hour, and he was gone. But the Steelers ended up winning. Ben Roethlisberger, Santonio Holmes, that incredible catch. Ben had about this much distance to throw that ball, and he had to put it right on the button. He had this much, got it right there, and Santonio made an incredible catch. Many people would put that Super Bowl, would round out the top 5. But if you've enjoyed my take post-mortem on Super Bowl 58, and you check this out on the YouTube channel and haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, turn on those notifications. Or if you caught up with Super Bowl 58 post-mortem on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes, same rule applies. If you enjoy the content, click like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with another numbered episode real soon. But until then, take care and enjoy the rest of your Monday.